So good afternoon. This is the Nesbi January Spotlight. And what I would like to do is go ahead and get people on my panel to go ahead and interview them, introduce themselves. If you can go ahead and provide me your name, your position, company, and the industry that you work in, DeWayne.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to come and support. My name is DeWayne Allen. I'm a director of corporate strategy and development for Raytheon Technologies. And our industry is aerospace and defense.
Okay. And also, Georgette, if you would mind going ahead and introducing yourself with name, position, company, and industry, please.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Georgette Harrison. I am a senior consultant in the transformational design and execution practice at Ernst & Young. And I'm also the director for the process improvement SIG for the National Society of Black Engineers.
Great, great. Sounds like great companies and jobs that you guys are working in. So that's wonderful. So if we can go ahead and get into a few questions with you guys, if I could start off with Georgette, and if you can kind of tell me what lessons have you learned along the way in working in your position, and possibly if you can kind of chat about maybe some of the things that you've done with process improvement that you can chat as far as lessons learned along the way.
Sure. So at Ernst & Young, I haven't been here quite a year. So I haven't really had the opportunity to do a lot of process improvement. But traditionally in my career, I've always worked in either project management or program management. So for example, when I was at IBM, I was a team lead that was managing a team that was immensely understaffed during the recession. And so I had to sit down and kind of assess our workload. What could we do? What couldn't we do? And then I would notify management, here's a list of things that our team cannot do because we simply don't have the bandwidth. Here are the things that we can continue to do, and the things we're not able to do, here are the other teams that are already doing that work. So it doesn't get lost in, the lack of bandwidth. When I was at Toshiba for a short stint, I actually helped the team onboard to a new defect tool and helped them write their playbook. But what I found is that even in testing, they didn't have a process that made sense. They also didn't have a training manual. So if they need to onboard someone, they didn't have a process to do that. So I helped them improve some of their processes in that way. And then lastly, my role at Carrier, I was a program manager for commercial HVAC. And the advantage that I had was from not working there, I could look at how the processes weren't effective. They had them, but they weren't effective or efficient, or kind of where some of those resource gaps kind of caused a lot of problems. And so what I would try to do is just take my experience from my other fields and my industrial engineering background and kind of merge them on how to do things better. So I would do things incrementally small to try to help make not only my teams better, but my projects better as a whole.
Thank you, Georgette. And so DeWayne, same question for you. What type of lessons have you learned along the way? And if you can provide those.
That's a great question. Similar to Georgette's situation, I'm a classically trained industrial engineer. My first jobs at what was then called Raytheon Missile Systems was all about, transitioning a factory from one state to another. And that's all screams productivity, that all screams efficiency, that all screams sizing, that all screams all of those classical, i.e. Process changes, looking at reviews, doing those things when I started my career. And, you always had those core skills. And then when I moved from that, from supporting programs or setting up programs, product lines as a classical industrial engineer, then I got into, design. And then those same core skill sets just come to bear when you're redesigning an inertial measuring unit, or if you're getting into, system engineering, you're looking at the system engineering process and working through there and where the efficiency moves. Or if you're getting into, when I got into engineering and cost analysis, looking at from a bottom line perspective of how those changes affect the bottom line. And as I progressed in my career, going in from, I want to say operations to program and product line leadership to, functional leadership, up and now into, corporate strategy and development, that process improvement stick just becomes a part of your core skill set, right? It's what you bring to the table, right? And essentially is, just really looking at it from problem solving. You can name it from pick the process, the MEG, you can, we'll pick whatever, however it starts with, and getting that Six Sigma expertise and certifications and all that good stuff along the way just helps fortify that as you move forward. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you guys. So this next one here is a good question. We always think about things that we can kind of leave behind or things that we can pay it forward to those that come behind us. DeWayne, if you could start with this question for me. What do you think or believe would be your greatest contribution to the area of focus and what that contribution has been? And
wow.
It could be something that could be you haven't quite gotten there, but it's something you want to aspire to. But yes, if you can share that with me, please.
The greatest contribution to your area of focus. I think it's bringing yourself and your full self to the solution. And I probably would say that it's about using whatever tools that you got in the tool belt, whatever you have to get to the solution. If you're somebody who can, I just took the 34 strengths thing, the Strength Finder 2.0 thing, and my number one strength, crazy, was the woo, like winning over others. And so if you have the ability to influence and be a peacemaker and drive people to get to a decision and get to a solution, be that, right? And as I look at it in my career, I've sometimes been that person, right? Or things like that. It's all about, just bringing, I think that's just continue to bring yourself to the solution and what you bring, right? And just creating that space for the solution to come about. If you are super technical, you might be the belly button that comes through with the technical acumen to bring it forward. If you have the financial acumen, you bring that part to the solution. There's so many facets, dimensions to how a solution comes to bear. I think that'd probably be bringing yourself to the solution is what's what I would say a contribution that I always bring to it. That's fair. I wouldn't call it greatest. I'll just call it that would be my piece to it, right?
That's fair. I appreciate it. Okay, Georgette, how about yourself? Greatest contribution?
That's a good one. I don't know if I feel like I haven't gotten there yet, but what I had to sit down and think about one day was that how in the several places where I've worked, I've been the first and generally the only, which is frustrating. It can be infuriating. Like even the department that I'm in now for the location I sit at, I am literally the first and only. And I started last February, which was, again, frustrating, but something to take some level of pride in. So what I try to do whenever I leave a place is I try to make it a little bit better for the people who have to come behind me. Hopefully a process that I created will make their lives easier, or some structure I set up will make their lives easier. I really like thinking in terms of strategy. So hopefully the work that I've done that I'm leaving there can carry them forward. I also mentor a lot. So I always usually end up having a bunch of, some of the younger people at work come and seek me out for advice because, they're struggling to adapt. I might be struggling to adapt as well, but I may know a little bit, more than them. So I usually try to, sometimes start with the end in mind, to also try to make things better in some of the spaces that I've been in. So I guess, those would kind of be the ways that I would sum it up, is hopefully for any of the also African-American women coming behind me. One of my biggest goals is to hopefully make the path a little smoother for them than the one that I've generally had to traverse.
Which is a great segue into my next question, because it's very close to what you just answered, Georgette. We always think about things that we can kind of leave behind, or little carrots that we can provide to those individuals coming up behind us. And again, when we kind of think about it, me being a baby boomer, I'm always looking at younger people and what I can provide to them. So my question to you, and you can just kind of add to what you just said, Georgette, because I'm sure you have a plethora of things that you can provide. So what is your feedback or advice or obligation that you would provide to the next generation?
Take risks. So many people don't know, I left Chicago at 17 to get on a plane by myself to attend North Carolina A&T. A lot of people thought I was crazy. Nobody really understood it. Most of my family has never left Chicago. So they just think that I'm nuts because I also haven't moved back. But I was comfortable with taking that risk because I felt like there was something better on the other side. And attending A&T has literally been my best decision ever. So one of my things is always to the younger people, especially the ones that are maybe in their hometowns and they don't get a lot of encouragement to leave. My advice is always take the risk to leave. If you don't like it, try it for a year. You can always move back home. But if you don't ever leave your city, your state, your county, you don't understand what other parts of the world are out there. So that's generally one of my biggest things because, you know, you get risk, you get rewards. If something doesn't work, you learn. So, you know, there's never really a loss in taking a risk sometimes, but you can learn a lot more about yourself, how you're built, what your character is about, you know, in case you get caught in some tricky situation or you get presented with one, you kind of start to understand like who you are, what you're made of, and how you think when you decide to also take risks.
Thank you. How about yourself, DeWayne? What would you like to provide to the next generation
I
in
mean,
terms of advice?
Georgette said it. I mean, it's typical of you know. I think this is a Nesbi thing, and we're all engineers. And we all had that background in all our endeavors, but it's always just be different, be unique, take that chance on yourself, right? And that's there. I also would add, just be open to it, right? It's okay. Sometimes each win is not as big as you think it is, and each loss is not as disappointing as you think it is. It just be, that's the other day, and particularly those that, from an engineering perspective, that's coming into whatever they're getting into, if it's entrepreneurial, if it's corporate America, if it's it's nonprofit. I said if you can develop some financial business acumen, that's going to put you ahead of the game, and it's going to add. You're going to be very, very valuable to the marketplace, whatever you decided to do, because you have that background. And, those are the things I would say that, particularly for those engineers that's getting into it, don't forget to get that financial business acumen. So if you know how business works, you'll be ahead of the game of any decision that comes.
Great.
So
Great. Thank you. So, which leads me to my next question. This is usually a question that's normally asked of us in our interviews, especially if we've been on one, two, or many. Now, one, you would probably say, well, what do you want to do, or what do you want to be in 5 years or 10 years or whatever? That's not the one I have for you guys. The one that I have for you guys, which sometimes people will stumble on. Now, the way that I had the question kind of presented to me, I'm going to put a little twist to it, because normally people are good at talking about their strengths, okay? Our greatest strengths. And people are good at talking about possibly opportunities. But what I want to do is drizzle in a little bit of what do you think of as your weaknesses? Because when you're sitting in that chair and you're doing a round robin with a whole bunch of people, because when it's one-on-one, it might be a little comfortable. But when you have 5 or 6 or 7 people in that room and you're trying to basically divulge all your weaknesses, we tend to probably sometimes freeze up. So what I need to do, starting with you, DeWayne, greatest strengths, possibly opportunities, but I also want you to finish up what are your weaknesses?
Well, I'll start with what I perceive as a opportunity for improvement. Let me say that I am incredibly adaptable, but I have learned as I progressed in my career that I'm starting to lack patience. I'm starting to lack patience, and maybe it's just because of the function of the level of visibility that I have been in these last 6-7 years. It's that patience meter is not as long as it used to be. As our boss, our CEO says sometimes, he says, you might be looking at the calendar, but I'm looking at my watch, right? And so so it's a different vibe when you're trying to get through things and something like that. That's something I would say. I think my one of the strengths that I have, I think, is the adaptability piece and just the ability to be uncomfortable and be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, right? Just be able to maintain that coolness about it. That's what I would say, at least what I've been told about a bunch of people. But that's what that would probably be.
All right. And you did give me something about your weakness.
Yeah, my weakness was the first one.
All right. Okay. Just
I
checking.
started with that.
I just want you to kind of resurface that one. So, okay, I got you. So
Yeah.
how about you, Georgette?
Strengths. Again, I try to think about starting with the beginning and the end in mind, excuse me. Because as DeWayne will understand, since we both have a couple of degrees in IE, I call it what I feel like we were taught, which is how to look at the forest and the trees at the same time. So if I make a decision today, what does that decision look like in an hour, 2 hours, a week, a month, right? And it makes you think about all of the things in between, all of the interactions, all of the side effects, all your constraints, makes you look at things a little bit different. So that's something I just like to do. And it's something I'm really good at. Like, I have friends that will literally call me like, I need to try to figure this out. And then I just ask them a bunch of questions and then they like go off and put it together. Opportunities, probably patience. My patience is not that great. So definitely to work on that, and presentation skills. Oddly enough, I get nervous when I have to present. It is not one of my favorite things to do. So that's something I've been working on. And I think a weakness is, I think my patience can be, or lack thereof sometimes, a weakness, or I'm a very A-type personality, and I struggle with turning it on and off. And so there are some people who can handle, that personality regularly and they don't get offended. And then conversely, there are some who get offended by it. And sometimes I can tell they get offended more so by it because I'm a woman. If I was a man, it wouldn't be taken as personally, or, they wouldn't feel some kind of way. But because I am a strong, A-type personality, I'm pretty short to the point. I'm direct. I'm always willing to help. But one of those things that I want to work on is how to still be an A-type personality, get the things across that I need to get across, but work on how they're being received, as much as I can on my part, to make sure that things don't get hung up or stopped because, or I don't want to ever turn into the bottleneck for something because somebody didn't like the way that it was asked of them per me.
Just know that, and again, what I'm doing in academia right now, shout to the rooftop, regardless if you're that female and the only female in the room. Because I can tell you, my students, especially my female students, I want them to speak out loud and proud and be able to have that voice. So don't hold back.
I concur.
So my last question to you guys, and I can start with you, Georgette. For someone just getting into school or someone just getting into their profession, what would you say would be the one thing that Nesbi has helped you with your career?
Oof, that's hard to pick one. Um, because I've done so many things in Nesbi. So again, I went to A&T. A&T has a relatively large chapter. We probably function like a regional board. So I guess I would say maybe just leadership. Like I never felt like I was being told that I was a leader. I think it's just something I was naturally guided into, if you will. So, I've worked with people, from different places because fortunately HBCUs are very, diverse in terms of where Black people come from. So I guess just leadership and maybe how to work with people. Because again, we were just working with people of, different ages, different places, different cultures. And then I guess guidance, like I always got help. No one was ever trying to kind of, hold the bucket of stuff away from you. Like I'm not sharing. So I think just sharing of knowledge transfer, I think is been one of the many of the largest things that I've probably received in my time in Nesbi.
Okay, thank you. And you, DeWayne?
Oh, wow. That's big. Georgette alluded to it, but I think it's the leadership piece and the problem solving piece, and then doing something noble and honorable, right? So our mission in Nesbi is so honorable, and it's so vast, and it's so future thinking and future forward, right? You just have to, you want to be making sure you're doing your part to accomplish that mission, and you don't have much time to do it. And what I always used to say as a leader of Nesbi is that, I got to get all these people who work for free to come get our jobs done, to go do this. And I'm taking away from their free time to come do it. And so first I got to do things like make this time that we're together enjoyable. And then I got to make these things that we're doing successful, right? Because everybody wants to win. And then you start looking at the skill sets that you develop over time. And Nesbi is, particularly as a leader, it's like a petri dish, right? You get to experiment on what type of leader you are. Hey, that leadership style doesn't work, or this thing doesn't work, or this style doesn't work with this person, to Georgette's earlier point of, having type A personalities, and Lord knows dealing with engineers, everybody knows the answer, right? And so it's that thing that Nesbi brings forth out of you, and you're doing something noble, and it's no cooler thing when it's hundreds and thousands of us together, and or even tens of us together, and we're looking at little kids, and they're looking at you, and they're like, "Wow, look at this here," and you just saying, "Well, I just I'm still taking thermal, right?" And that's you as a college student. Then you look at it when you're when you're looking at it, and you're your first or second year in your industry, right? And you see these college kids, and they just like, "Man, wow, you made it. Wow, you know what a bathroom is. You know how corporate America works. You can do this." And you're like, "Hey, this is my second year doing it, right?" And so forth, right? And this is my time. And people who's changed careers, or went in different paths or unusual paths. I'm one that did an unnatural path to where I am. Not staying technical most of my career, that type of thing. That's what Nesbi just gives you, right? And it brings it out of you, man. And it's such a gem. And there's a reason why I'm a lifetime member. There's a reason why I have lifelong friends who are Nesbi members. There's a reason why I remember Dr. Davis back in the day when I was a wee high, and looking at him and like, wow, look at this dude in academia, he's doing it, and he got a doctorate last name, right? And there's a reason why when Georgette will call you and you answer the phone, right? It's a camaraderie and almost a family thing that makes it important. And so if I can close with anything, it's like this thing is so noble and valuable, and it will last forever, because we have people like us on this Zoom call that want to make sure it's going to be everlasting, and we're going to keep passing that on forever and ever. And I'm so honored and appreciative to be a part of something so great. You muted, Brother Charles.
I apologize. My grandfather clock is chiming, guys. So
Uh,
again, I apologize for that. But I want to thank you, Ms. Georgette Harrison and Mr. DeWayne Allen, for participating in our NSBE Process Improvement SIG January Spotlight. You guys were wonderful. And hopefully we can do this real soon. And hopefully everybody will appreciate the January Spotlight.
Thank you.
Thank you.